if you've had an experience of bullying, so many of us did when we were growing up, but for some people it goes on and on and on, and it really changes the trajectory of your life if you believe the things that those bullies say. Jennifer Nagy is here. She's a blogger and author, and you were that kid who felt worthless and like nobody liked you.
Yes.
And tell me about that time in your life.
It was obviously a very difficult time in my life, and unfortunately the bullying in my life started very young, as early as grade 2, and progressed all the way through the end of high school.
And what were these kids saying?
The whole gamut of insults. It started out a little bit more benign, so, you know, like maybe I'd be wearing the wrong shirt, or
wrong shirt.
Yeah.
Like, what,
yes. Very
what could be
superficial
wrong
things
about what you're wearing?
Yeah. Unfortunately, kids can be very mean. And I was the type of person that was very sensitive and wanted to be liked and wanted to be friends with everyone. So I think, you know, I would say the wrong thing or I would try too hard. And so then I became a target based on that. And then as school progressed, then, you know, we moved into our teenage years, and obviously with girls and, you know, puberty, there's so many things that kids have to say about that. So I was teased for being flat-chested. That was one that kind of went all the way through high school. So, you know, I definitely had a lot of different taunts and things that, you know, I was bullied for, which did make it harder as well, because you just kind of feel that as a whole there must be something wrong with you, because there's so many different things that you're hearing.
School must have been a miserable experience for you. How were your grades during all of this?
Well, I've always been pretty good at school. I love being in school. I mean, even now. So that was the one thing I really liked about school. I liked learning. I liked going, and, you know, I did have friends in school, so that was good. But it was a misery for me. There was really not very many positive things.
And the misery didn't stop. It continued. The effects of it continued into your life. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. Well, I hit a point at about grade 10 where I was contemplating killing myself because I had no way of dealing with it. I didn't really know what I was doing wrong, so it was really hard for me to figure out how I could keep handling the pain that I'd been dealing with for so long. And once I had that thought, very quickly I said, no, you know what, I do want to survive this, but in order to do so I had to come up with coping mechanisms that would kind of shut me down and help me get through all of the difficulty.
You didn't want to feel vulnerable anymore.
Exactly.
So you shut those parts
100%.
down.
100%. So for me, vulnerability is a very big issue because I had to basically shut down all of the emotional, sensitive sides of myself. And I tried to create a mask of perfection in my life as a whole. Going forward, I tried to figure out what were the things they were saying about me and what do I need to do to address them. So if it's I need to look better, I need to be thinner, I need to have a boyfriend, I need to do all of these things. And so as I got older, that kind of mask was so ingrained that it became very impossible to see beyond that. My whole life was about creating this external mask of perfection and beauty. And so I realized at a much later age, you know, in my 20s, well into my 20s, that I had absolutely no connection to this life because it was so superficial and created to be able to...
Based on what others thought was good.
Exactly, not what I wanted in my life or what my ambitions or my hopes or my happiness was. And so it was a very difficult thing because I realized it 10 years down the road, and once it set into your personality, it's very difficult to go backwards.
But you changed everything. You actually left that life behind.
I did. I had the perfect life, and I can't complain. It was amazing. Like, I did have a great life. I just didn't appreciate it. So that was the greatest problem. I was married. I lived in Miami Beach. I lived right on the ocean. I had like my dream job. And I couldn't find happiness. And I knew that if I didn't get back to myself, then I would never be happy. And to me, that was the most important thing. So yeah, unfortunately, I picked up and I left my husband, I left my dogs, I left my job, and I moved back to Toronto, and I started the long, long road through recovery, and I started going to therapy and trying to figure out what it was that I wanted and who I was and what made me happy. So it's a long road.
Here you are, you're able to talk about it now, and you feel like you've found your authentic self.
Yes.
So what advice do you have for others who are in the same position?
I think that it's really important if you are being bullied as a child. The first thing that you want to do is not pretend it's not happening. When I was younger, what I was told was just ignore it. Just act like it doesn't bother you. And I think that was kind of what started me down the road of putting on this fake face and acting. So I think it's important to talk to a friend or talk to a parent and get the support that you need. And I think it's also very important to realize that just because people are saying something about you doesn't mean it's true. If they have a point, if you see that they're saying something that you feel you need to change, go ahead and change. But otherwise, just drop it. And I think it's very important for kids and for parents whose kids are being bullied to be supporting them and letting them know that they are good, they are worthwhile people, they are strong, and just because people are saying things does not mean it's true.
That's right.
And I think going to therapy has been a life changer for me. And I do recommend that more people go to therapy, no matter what you've been through in your life, but especially with bullying, because vulnerability is such a difficult thing to embrace after you spent a lot of your time shutting it down.
And therapy is so widely available now.
Absolutely.
You can find a counselor or a psychiatrist. What did you choose?
I personally have done a couple different options. So right now I'm going to a psychologist. I've tried different types of therapy as well. A lot of people don't realize that there are multiple types of therapy depending on your specific circumstances and what you want to accomplish. So my first year I was seeing a psychologist, but he was focused on cognitive behavioral therapy, which is more on changing behaviors instead of dealing with the issues that you have. And so now I'm seeing a Gestalt therapist. And that's been a lot more helpful for me, just in the way that I deal with things and the way that I think about things and process things.
You wrote about this, all the things you're telling us, you wrote in your blog.
Yes.
How did people respond to that? I'm sure you drew many out of their shell.
Yeah, it was actually surprising to me. When I was being bullied, I felt very alone. I kind of felt like I was the only person who was being bullied. But I got a lot of comments from people who had gone through similar things, even people in my own school. And they said, you know, I never really realized that you were so upset by this. And, you know, so it was very interesting. It made me feel supported, which is something that I think I was missing when I was younger, because I realized that it does happen to so many people and that so many people struggle through it. So it was a really good experience for me to share that. And I had quite a few people reach out to me and say, you know, I'm really glad you shared this. Like, it made me feel better about myself and my situation as well. So
I wonder if the bullies ever come to a realization later in life.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
I do hope so. Because
often they're struggling too. They're dealing with self-esteem issues.
Yes, people bully a lot of the time because they do have issues related to, like you said, self-esteem, self-worth. And so it's easier for them to lash out at someone else and take the attention off of them.
Thank you for sharing today.
Of course. Thank you for having me on.
JenNagy.com for more information and read her blog. It's quite inspiring. Really good.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back.